and thank you for tuning in for another edition of MysticU, the Mystic University. Today we'll be speaking with mystic reader Josh Siegel. He is one of the foremost authorities on the ancient science of numerology. Josh, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So before we get into the exciting conversation of numerology, what is it, what can it tell us, and glean some of those insights, we're going to learn about Josh. Really fascinating guy, so much fun to work with. If you have the pleasure of receiving a reading with Josh, not only do you get tremendous insight to your life path, your purpose, and all of that unfolding, it's also entertaining, and he's really friendly and engaging, and it's almost like making a new friend. So that's something you get to look forward to, in addition to understanding your numbers. So, a little bit about Josh. He has 18 years of experience and has made, at this point in time, I would say probably more like 15,000 readings.
It's about right, yeah.
Yeah. He's been a busy guy, honing his craft and cultivating that ability to really get to the core of the matter and get some instant clarity to those questions that may have been plaguing you for a long time. It just could be a matter of that outside perspective, or someone who has the science or the ability to crack this certain code to provide you with what could be that missing piece to your puzzle.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? So he's able to break that hidden code that creates a matrix within each and every one of us. And that information can really help to reveal your path, your purpose, what you are currently seeking that could provide that sense of fulfillment.
That's right.
Or even a sense of peace. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, Josh has read for people from all different walks of life, from celebrities to Fortune 500 executives, homemakers, people that travel the world, right here in Los Angeles. And he also has the ability to do readings over the phone, over Skype, for clients overseas. So,
done plenty of those.
If you're far away, no worries. Help is still a phone call or a Skype call away. A couple other things that we definitely want to mention, because this is the fun stuff. He has done some really great work in media and in entertainment, sharing this gift of numerology. He's been featured on the History Channel series Decoded. He is an expert that the Los Angeles Times, CBS News, Fox News, Diane Sawyer's ABC World News has called upon for his take, his perspective. And in addition to that, he's featured on the #1 DVD, Jim Carrey's movie, The Number 23. And this is an interesting and exciting recent development. Mm-hmm. Josh was featured in an upcoming documentary with Deepak called
The Reality of Truth.
The Reality of Truth. And he's alongside lots of other luminaries like Deepak and Marianne Williamson and Joel Osteen. Mm-hmm. And it's something that you would want to put on your radar for when it comes out. And you'll get to hear Josh's take on the reality of truth. It's kind of a big deal.
It is kind of a big deal thinking about that.
Yeah. And he's also working on a TV show pilot. So there's lots of exciting things to come. But for now, let's learn some more about your path that led to numerology. Where did this begin for you?
Well, I think it began about 18, 19 years ago. I was going through some hardship. It's not uncommon for people who work in this field to get into this field because of challenging circumstances in their life, where you become a seeker yourself. And that's what happened to me. I had sort of a challenging time in my life where I lost my job and went through a terrible breakup. And it caused me to kind of reflect and reevaluate where I was going. What's kind of different about me is I didn't come from a spiritual family or a New Age family at all. I come from academics. Mother was a professor at UCLA. She's actually distantly related to Albert Einstein.
Wow.
You know when people say, "You're no Einstein"?
Yeah.
She's like, as a matter of fact, I am. So I didn't have this sort of enriched spiritual environment growing up, but I was definitely about knowledge and information. But instinctively, I felt like there was more to life. And when I was seeking answers to what was going on and try to help me to figure out and negotiate my challenges, I stumbled upon a book on numerology. And for some reason, I guess it worked perfectly for me because it was mathematical and it was grounded and it was science and it made sense. And it also explained sort of the hidden workings of the universe that I've always believed were there, but I needed evidence for it. And now, when I first stumbled upon it, it was in its a very basic state. You know, a lot of numerology is very basic. What I did is I took this sort of basic understanding of numerology and applied that sort of scholarly scientific approach and did a lot of research and testing. And now about 18, 19 years later, I now have at my disposal a very powerful system or a code where I can sort of break the matrix of a person's life. Why they are the way they are, what causes them to attract certain challenges, what their higher purpose is. You know, about 85, maybe 80%, 85% of people aren't really fully, completely satisfied in their work or career. There's actually a reason for that. And that's hidden in this code, in your numbers. A lot of people attract similar situations and relationships over and over again, in one way or another. There's a reason for that. That's hidden in that code, right?
This is so fascinating. So it sounds like you're able to, it's like the skeleton key that is a why to a lot of the underlying themes in your life. Can you take it a step back though? You said when you were first introduced to this information, it was very foundational.
That's right.
It was sort of like the 101 of the numerology, and over the years, you've taken your insight and refined a more advanced process, is what it sounds like.
That's right.
Tell me about what is in that basic information that is so universal that you saw truth in it, and then where did you take it? Well,
you know that 20th century psychoanalyst Carl Jung, right? I don't know if anyone's ever heard of him because this is an interesting world that not everyone's privy to, but he was an interesting, fascinating person to me because he found in all of religion and all of mythology and all those stories that we hear as we're children growing up, what he called, he termed it archetypes.
Right.
Or symbols or things that just kind of crop up in the human mind all the time. And going back thousands of years. What I found is that there's certain basic truths to numbers, that numbers are not just for quantifying or counting like your taxes, which by the way you all have to do now, but also have a quality to them. So when I was first studying this, what I consider to be a science now, certain basic principles, you know, calculating these numbers and applying it to a person, which is done, by the way, by your birth date and your full name at birth, and which seems so darn arbitrary. Like, gosh, I was born on that day, or my mother decided to give me this middle name because that was her mother's name or something. It seems so arbitrary. And as a skeptic, I had a lot of difficulty with this. But as I started, like I said, working with it, certain things I think ring true. When you first look at how numerology works, it's just too general to put everything on it. And it needed refinement, as you said.
Right.
It needed experience in testing and evolving it into a powerful system whereby anyone can sit down in front of me and in a matter of minutes I can go, let me explain to you why this is happening right now. Let me help you to understand how to get the most out of this challenge that you were born with, right? In a way, and I have to make this very clear, in an unmistakably accurate manner, where there's enough hits that I give the person information without me getting anything from them. I'm always annoyed if I've getting readings from people. They go, let me ask you this. I'm like, well, what am I doing here? I'm telling you everything.
Right.
The idea is if the science is true, you sit down and in a language that you can understand, right? Where I reach you, where I'm like an old friend, where you are very comfortable with this, I'm able to talk to you about your life and tell you certain things that are just unmistakable, irrefutable.
Again, coming from just your birthday and your name at birth. And I think something that you didn't include in that is that this is a science that you have proven over the course of time.
That's right.
So the 18 years and 15,000 plus readings have just affirmed that these are not flukes, It's not just by chance that there is validity to certain signature with these numbers. And earlier, when you were speaking, it made me think of, if everything has its own energetic signature, its own specific vibration that it's on, then the same can be said for different numbers, correct? It is what it is. This is the vibration of a 9 or a 5, and that to me can sort of be that universal application of the basis of numerology.
That's totally true. This is what I referred to before when Jung talked about archetypes or symbols. If you think about certain numbers utilized in the Bible, for example, Noah was on the ark for 40 days and 40 nights, right? We have the Israelites wandering in the desert for 40 years. We have Jesus tempted in the desert for 40 days. Is it just a mere coincidence, or was there a system of numbers utilized by these great writers of these divine writings that hinted towards something of a code or a system? In other words, is there a deeper understanding by these great writers of the past, of antiquity, where they understood that numbers were coding in special, spiritual, or scientific, information? What I've done is I said, look, I got a woman sitting in front of me, she's going through a breakup. I got a guy and he's lost in his career situation. I'm taking this ancient science, right, that's been around for thousands of years, and as you say, so universal, from ancient India to the Zoroastrians in Persia and the Egyptians and all of this. I'm taking all this knowledge and I'm going, how can I use it in a way that you can literally have your life changed by, or you can apply that in your daily life? One thing I want to talk about this documentary upcoming with Deepak called Reality of Truth. What's interesting in that documentary is they take this whole group of people up to Peru in the mountains, and they meet with a shaman priest, and they go through all these heavy, deep things, and they go around and they talk all these incredible luminaries around the world, and it's like, wow, this is so incredible. One of sort of the interesting experiences I had when I was being interviewed for this documentary, The Reality of Truth with Deepak, was I was exposed to, when I was getting information about what this thing was about, I was exposed to this whole storyline of the documentary where they take a team of people and they go off into, I believe Michelle Rodriguez is in it also, oh, wow. And they take a group of people and they go off into the mountains in Peru. And it's a kind of an incredible story about how, they really, go on a spiritual journey, right? Mm-hmm. And I was, I said, wow, this is incredible stuff. But my take on it was, and how I always am with clients, is, look, this is all great and powerful. We can all go to the top of the mountain and have a spiritual experience and so on and so forth. But if you can't apply that while someone is cutting you off on the 405 and you're screaming all kind of expletives and things and so on and so forth, and you can't apply that in your daily life, and you still have a difficult relationship with your mother that you haven't been able to decode, mm-hmm. and you're unhappy in your relationship, or you're not happy with your job situation, if you can't apply that on a daily level, I'm sorry, but what good is it?
Right.
You've got to. This is the reason why this science works is because when I was working to make it applicable to the average person with real life situations, I was like, how do I make this work on such a level where the average person can use it? It's not often in the mountains.
Right.
Right? It's not often in where you're by yourself in a cabin, meditating. You got to be able to apply this stuff. And it's got to be accurate, it's got to be real, it's got to be useful.
So you said earlier, and I thought this was really interesting, you said, you have, for example, a relationship that hasn't yet been decoded, or you're running into the same problem with work or career, and there's something yet that hasn't been decoded. Can you talk a little bit about what is that skeleton key? What is the thing that cracks the code? And what are you giving your clients that they can use on a daily basis?
Great question. What I found is just kind of astonishing to me. The implications are rather big. And I think this is going to, obviously be in my book. But what I found is that just like we're born with a strand of DNA mm-hmm. that tells us what color hair we're going to have, and eye color, and predisposition to disease, and all these kinds of things, all really in a really a number, because the scientists have mapped this DNA code. Just in the same way, I have found that people are born with a map to their lives, psychologically and spiritually. And in other words, you're born with certain challenges, and that will be reflected in your family. You know, in some ways, what I do isn't so far off from, partially from a therapist. In some way, shape, or form,
Right.
there's a therapeutic quality to it. But there's also things that are quite different, and I don't get any background from you. What I see is, this is the lesson you were born with, and what human beings do is they carry this stuff internally in the subconscious mind, and they attract situations in their life to play it out with. You know, it's once you understand what your code is, you have the power, and it's not that crystal ballish crap. No, you are going to change this. I help you to take responsibility for your life, you know, and what it is I help you unlock that code and go, this is what was given to you at birth. This is probably what happened in your family. This is the myth that you are carrying about yourself, and that is why your subconscious mind attracts these kinds of experiences over and over and over again.
So what you're clarifying, again, not from pulling information from the client, but just from your birth date and your name, what you're clarifying is this was the circumstance upon your arrival. This is what I'm hearing. This is your lesson, your challenge, your
Pattern.
your puzzle, your code.
That's right.
Right. And once you understand what that is about, it illuminates every facet of your life, because it's not whatever that lesson is or whatever that circumstance is. It's never just isolated to your relationships, your career, your health.
No.
It's underlying your existence. You want to?
It's the whole enchilada. You know the term. Well, you know the term holistic.
Right.
I'll give you a little hint about something that I've learned when it comes to relationships, right? Which is so big for all of us. Is there is a part of us, each of us, that I would say is part of kind of a wound, or a part of us that's difficult to deal with, and it's given to us at birth. It's our challenge, our lesson, and it gives meaning to our lives. When we understand what that is, and I reveal that to people, and you start just taking action. You don't have to have it down. You just start taking action to bring a part of yourself that you've held down because of fear, anxiety, insecurity, self-worth issues. That part of you, when you start to enact that in your life by yourself, not with anyone else, your relationship life will change dramatically. And I've seen it thousands of times. So a lot of the time people go, I need to look for a girl like this or a guy like that. You're not going to attract that girl or a guy unless you start to change certain things inside yourself. It naturally attracts that.
So give us an example, Josh, of one of these prevalent life lessons or life challenges that, like you said, actually, with understanding, becomes what gives you meaning, gives you purpose.
Okay, so there are, as you can imagine, I use quite an advanced system, but when it comes down to it, there are certain basic principles, certain basic numbers that if appear in the chart, I'm going to get into, and there's only so many of those. There are classifications, if you will.
Okay.
So let's just take just the number 8 by itself. Let's say 8 figures strongly into a woman's challenge, right? So what we have here with the number 8 is directly related to self-worth. That's interesting because some of these old books on numerology, they talk about 8 being a number of money and finances and things of the sort. And it's interesting, that's a very oversimplified concept, because if you don't feel worthy, you're not going to be attracting a whole lot of financial abundance in your life.
Right.
And no, I'm not talking about the secret here. I'm not talking about positive thinking. I'm talking about programming from your childhood that does not make you feel worthy. And what that does a lot of the time is it creates one thing after another in work and relationship. Why would self-worth play out in relationship? you know, unless you're working for your boyfriend or your husband. Well, what happens is that you may find a partner, and this is how it works. We have your numbers will mirror other people. You can find a partner over and over again on the extreme sides of what we call financial success or goal orientation. So let's take, for example, this woman with this 8 challenge who might be with a man who spends all his time building up his empire. He has this incredible need to be successful and to achieve at the expense of everything, at the expense of her. So the money and the power and the success, the status is chosen symbolically over her.
Right.
She's second best. She doesn't realize it, but she's playing out her self-worth issues. The other factor is that she may not feel very empowered because she's giving it to him. It's all about his success. She's just along for the ride, right?
Right.
Now, what can happen on the other side of the extreme is that she may attract a guy that has a terrible time manifesting. She may spend time trying to prop him up, get him to be more successful in his life, get him to be more ambitious and goal-oriented. Maybe he's a bit of a slacker. Maybe he doesn't feel like he can do it. Maybe he doesn't have a pot to piss in.
Right.
And she may spend a lot of her time trying to build this guy's self-worth up, and she doesn't realize it. She's giving away her power again, but on the other side of the spectrum. You follow me?
Yeah.
Now, self-worth says that what I do is worth remuneration or making money. And you also have to understand that self-worth is about understanding the value in what you do and what you bring to the table. So if you start to recognize your own value, and again, these are things that you know, I work with the client and so on and so forth, and you start changing your view about what you do and how worthy it is, many things are going to happen. Now, of course, there's going to be action that needs to be taken along with this. I don't believe in all this food for stuff.
With the awareness.
Yeah.
With the awareness that comes from the reading of, okay, here's something that is a part of my experience is since birth, and this is something I need to be mindful of, or something that I just need to understand better is my self-worth. How do I value myself? And you're right, you have to take action on that, because once you have that information, you can't then go out the following week for a job interview and then not have the courage or the belief in yourself to ask for your worth. You have to take action. The next step is to declare your worth. And if you're in an unhealthy relationship where you recognize you're either propping someone else up or giving your power away that way, or giving your power away to someone who's more concerned with their own success and wealth,
That's right.
you have to take action.
That's right. And what's interesting is that it is almost unbelievable how, and it has nothing to do with how intelligent you are, it doesn't, or how successful you are. There is this programming from your childhood, conditioning, where you can be a man and you can be worth, you know, millions or billions of dollars and understand that you have self-worth issues. That's why you needed to have all that, right? And so there's a balance to all things. This stuff the human mind carries so much of this early programming in it, and that we're not aware of this myth that I have low self-worth. You know, I'm not aware of that. And now look, I'm simplifying things. There's a lot of other intricate things involved in a chart and how they play out. And one thing that I think also is really fascinating about this world of numerology and this particular system I use is the predictive element about it, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time people are saying, well, what's coming up ahead for me, right? And you know, the whole crystal ball stuff, right? Numerology and this science that I particularly use, it's not fortune telling. I'm not a fortune teller. What's really interesting is I'm known to go back in time with a person's chart before I go forward in time. And I will ask very targeted questions and actually peg events in a person's life years ago. Now, a lot of readers don't want anything to do with that. You know why? Because if you say, did something like this happen during a time? You might be wrong. Now, I could say 2 years from now this is going to happen. My ass will be in, you know, Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't know. I mean, I'm gone by then, right? But when you go back in time, you're looking at what I call the developmental process. You're looking at how a person's life plays out. And you're looking to see how they've developed in their understanding of their numbers, right? So I might go back 3 years from now and go, did you have a relationship with a very narcissistic person? Or did you finally get that promotion then? Oh yeah, I did. You know, these things, well, how did you know that? And well, this is statistically, remember it's a science, it's math. Statistically, that was the most likely outcome. But what's so amazing about this number stuff is that you're here to conquer your numbers. So let's say in a challenging cycle before, you kind of fell apart and had a big, difficult time, and there's one coming up, you can turn that into a big win.
Right.
In fact, the whole purpose of what I do is to change those challenging circumstances into meaningfulness, success, and happiness.
By providing that bigger picture and the understanding of what that challenge means in the unfolding of your purpose, the unfolding of your fulfillment. And then there's so much peace to be had in seeing how it plays out in the bigger picture. Yes, this may be a challenging moment right now, but on the other side, if you walk through the fire and take the right course of action, you'll be equipped with new skills or the confidence to move on, or you'll meet someone, so
there's a payoff
right
for the work that you do on yourself. There's a payoff, baby. And it happens and it's real. This isn't pie in the sky stuff. I see it. I have case studies that when you start to apply yourself and understand what your code is and just make the effort, so many things change in your life. And starting to look at some of these myths that you may have about yourself. Now, there's this timing in the future, just like there was timing in the past, where things are more likely to happen than others.
according to the numbers.
According to the numbers. That's experience. That's looking at how the code works from dealing with 15, 16,000 people.
And so how does that work? We're talking about, let's say for example, I'm a number 3. I am.
Lucky you.
So, would you then say, okay, well you're a 3 and next year we're moving into the year 2015, and then so how does that work?
All right, now look, I'm not going to be able to get into all the specifics because it's quite complicated. Now, when you sit down with me, I'm very, clear, concise, easy to understand. But the stuff that I do is a little bit, it's very comprehensive. Remember that movie, A Beautiful Mind?
Yes.
Okay.
That's going on up there.
Yeah,
okay.
there's a lot. So let me just simplify it again. So let's say 3, which represents creativity, or it rules your voice and being able to express your needs. So let's say I know that you have a 3 cycle coming up, because every year and even every month we're under a different number. I might, depending on how old you are, if I went back, I pegged certain things in the past, and I'm seeing we're getting into a dialogue at that point after I've done a sort of analysis of your chart. I'll say, now look, this could be a really powerful transformational time for you, because the 3 cycle is going to challenge you to own your voice. Right? That may mean finally giving that ultimatum. That may mean finally speaking up for yourself with family members. That means finally having the courage to get your creative work out into the world and all that wonderful talent that you possess. Right? Because 3 is just a very creative, talented number. But 3s also suffer from a lot of self-doubt. Right? It's so amazing. Take a storyline of a girl or a boy who grows up in a family where they never had a chance to open themselves up. Maybe there's a lot of emotional closeness or emotional repression in the family. And they have all these sort of insecurities about expressing themselves. It's funny how that person later on in life becomes a public speaker or a writer.
Which comes back to, that's who you are at the core. That was your number, it was there all along. And again, to have the insight, to have the information, it can provide so much peace, it can provide so much clarity in your life, give you a better understanding of who you are, and perhaps affirmation to something you felt all along. Like if you are, for example, that creative artist and your upbringing has been one that's been more stifled, to finally get that confirmation. No, that is who you are, and that's where you can shine and really fulfill your purpose. It can be incredibly liberating, and it's never too late for anyone.
No, God, you really hit on an amazing point there. It is a real accurate reading, one that's useful in your life, should ring true. And it should be certain things about yourself, for the most part, that you already know,
Right.
but you struggle with. We don't go to a reader just to get answers of what's, in this world beyond and what's going on. We all have desires inside. We all have a motivation for something. And it's incredibly, I wish I had that when I was growing up, because I didn't. I didn't have anything confirming, I'm still doing a very sort of unconventional job from where I grew up, the professor and the attorney, parents. So I didn't have that. This is a real gift of the system. The system confirms things to you. It helps you to go, oh my gosh, I'm really on the right path. And yeah, I know why I'm veering off it temporarily. And it's all part of the process. I make it easy for you to look at your challenges in a way that's really different than other types of therapeutic systems, because I say you're meant to have that issue just like you're meant to work through it. Mm-hmm. I make it okay to be a human. Mm-hmm. And I also am about practical things. Mm-hmm. I don't say anything that's not doable.
You're not sending anybody to the top of the mountain.
No, as a matter, it's so funny because like in that documentary, right. they went to the mountain, right. And I said, guys, let's look at what's going on in your life now. Yeah. When you get home.
Right, the day-to-day.
The day-to-day is where it's all about.
There's one thing that I just want to be clear on, because I think it's very helpful, which is when you have, again, that big roadmap to life. Yeah. And you can have the session and the confirmation of this is what I'm working with, both what at times could feel like a little bit of a burden, but ultimately it's that blessing specifically for you. Yeah. And you have those, okay, these were some of my life experiences, my ups and my downs, my lessons. Yeah. And then you can say, okay, now based on that, this could be a good opportunity for you because you've been working to resolve this, and the energy of this number, this month, this year is very supportive to your finances. And this is what you've been working on, now is the time.
So very well said. I mean, this is that matrix thing that's so, even today, I'm really fascinated by my work. I love people, I love helping people, but I gotta tell you, what you just talked about, this sort of synchronistic thing, it's when a person has been kind of struggling and then the breakthrough happens, you see? And that is all part of like this, there's a little bit of divine timing in there, but it's also so much about the decisions that you make, right, in your life. People ask, well, let me ask you something, if a lot of this was sort of meant to be, is life just completely fated? Or how much free will plays in a role? And I would say it's really a combination of the two. But I'm really big on free will, because yes, it's true. If you look at have you ever played with a little baby who has really been around on this planet long enough? They have a personality. Right. Why are some of them, cry more? Or some of them will grab your finger more. Obviously, you're born with certain personality traits. You want to call it your karma, you want to call it your destiny, fine. But the idea is what unfolds out of that destiny is the choices that you make, and that does set things up for when that next cycle comes around that could really be conducive to a major life change. You're ready for that. That's why I always say you may have been under this cycle 9 years ago, because everything kind of happens in cycles of 9. Mm-hmm. And here you are again, but guess what? You're ready for it. This is your time. And you'd be surprised how often that is true. And it's so exciting to see that kismet, that synchronicity, and then a person's life takes off. It's remarkable. Right.
And it's just, it's not necessarily something that the average person can figure out or discern on their own, which is, where am I in these cycles? How far have I come in evolving from one stage to the next? And then to have someone to say, it's like having a coach in a way, to say, hey, this time you're showing up as a different person, you've learned some things, here's an opportunity to take the same test, right, but you're going to have to do better this time because you're ready to do better.
Look, it's not about doing better per se. I think evolving as a human being is a process that we do in our own time. Yes, things are more likely to happen at certain time frames, and that's the predictive element. But we have to understand that all of us are, we're humans. We're trying to figure this whole thing out. It's difficult being on this planet. It ain't easy.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not about, some people actually have issues with being addicted to doing better all the time. And that's part of their problem.
Yeah.
So I think it's not about doing better per se. I think it's about seeing where we're naturally can go and giving ourselves the permission to do it, and basically noticing how we look at things and block ourselves. Because we have these, I call them myths, these beliefs about ourselves. It's kind of remarkable, and it's so deep. You think of it on a basic level. An anorexic woman looks in the mirror and she sees a fat person. Clearly that's not what's happening.
Right.
She has such a distorted picture of that. In all of us, we carry a little bit of a distortion.
Mm-hmm.
And I help you to kind of clear that up a bit, get kind of an awakened approach to that. And then strategically, we talk about things coming up in the future, how to get out of that old pattern and start creating a new one.
I like that, because you're right. It's not so much, because yes, the fixation of doing it better can be very problematic. It just can put you down a slippery slope in a different direction.
Yeah.
Constantly feeling like you need to fix yourself. So I appreciate that you made the distinction of, no, we're looking to do things differently once we've recognized a pattern.
That's right.
Yeah, and it is tough being a human. So we can, this kind of.
It hasn't been a day at the park for me. One thing I will say is that most people that I know in this world, they're not in this line of business because they haven't experienced adversity in their own life. And I kid a lot, and I think healing can be fun, even deeper stuff. But when it comes down to it, I have a lot of compassion inside. I'm not a perfected ascended master by a long shot. That's for damn sure. I think the idea is saying I have no problems in bringing up stuff about myself and my challenges in my life to kind of come into commune with the client, develop a deeper rapport with them, and say, yeah, I get that. Something like this happened to me. And because after all said and done, yeah, I pride myself on accuracy and this powerful system and nailing things and being correct. I'm my own perfectionist with that. But I think the value really is the human component. I want to connect with people in a positive way, and I want to see them flourish. You see, and that comes from something deep inside. There is no number for that.
Oh, that was great. So there you have it. I really feel like you can benefit everyone. You're providing a unique perspective on folks' lives, on their journey, on their path, on their unfolding. Information like that can only help. It adds to that big picture. It adds clarity. It adds peace. And it can also help in sort of, sussing out what is the next step, what's the next best step, once you have that understanding. Thank you so much, Josh.
My pleasure.
For sharing your information and a little bit about your journey, and for sharing your intention. I think it's really reflective of the kind of folks that we have the pleasure of working with here at Mystic Journey. These are gifted readers that, like Josh said, no one just shows up here because their experience has been the silver spoon in their mouth. They've lived the human experience, the adversities, the trials, the tribulations, and they've used their own specialties and modalities to make the most of that.
That's right.
To help other people, which is,
It's the name of the game.
That's the name of the game, exactly. Yes. Is taking that truthful, authentic experience and taking what works and then using it to help other people. I encourage you to go to mysticjourneybookstore.com and read up about Josh, and you can book an appointment with him either in the store. You can call and have a session on the phone or via Skype if you're overseas. It's not a big deal. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. We didn't even drop any F-bombs or... Okay, our usual communication is a little bit like drunken sailors.
How dare you? Do you know who I am?
Highly evolved spiritual drunken sailors.
Yes, well, I've been known.
Yeah, it's part of that. It's part of that human experience, and it's part of that. Like I said, it's like getting a new friend when you sit down with the session with Josh, and we encourage you to call, provide your feedback if you've had a session with him. Tell us how great it was, and maybe some of those future predictions have come true. I'm sure Josh would want to hear about it.
You do hear.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily tell you, but you do hear. In the grapevine.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see what else. Keep an eye out for that documentary, The Truth About Reality.
The reality of truth.
The reality of truth.
Yes.
The reality of truth.
Yes.
Yes. Congratulations on your pilot.
Thank you.
And we will chat with Josh again on another edition of MysticU. Thank you so much, and we'll be with you again soon.